Hello, and welcome to this special weekday Motor Trade Radio podcast, powered by Motors and Cazoo, with Philip Nothard and Curtis Hutchinson, bringing you all the chatter that matters.
Hello and welcome to this Motor Trade Radio OEM special showcasing FARIZON, a new Chinese all-electric commercial vehicle maker which launched in the UK in 2025 and is building a dealer network from scratch. FARIZON is a wholly owned subsidiary of Geely and is a major player in China, where it has doubled its market share for 3 consecutive years. Last year, it became the first all-electric commercial vehicle brand to achieve global sales of 300,000 units. Distributed in the UK by Jameel Motors, who also import Ion, the new Chinese EV car maker, FARIZON launched here with the SV 3.5-ton large van in May 2025. It currently has 7 locations covering the Southwest, London and the Midlands, and is targeting significant network growth from this year. Its most recent signing was Pentagon Motor Group in Derby, who joined the network in March. Heading up the business in the UK, and our special guest on today's pod, is General Manager Calum James. Calum joined the business from Mercedes-Benz UK, and during his 11-year tenure, he was after-sales district manager, national fleet sales manager, and more recently, head of corporate sales for vans. And prior to joining Mercedes, he was fleet sales manager at Sytner. So welcome to the Motor Trade Radio podcast, Calum. What must be an incredibly busy and exciting time for you and the brand?
Yeah, thank you for that kind introduction. Yes, it is an incredibly busy time for us, and I'm definitely a little grayer than perhaps I was 8 or 9 months ago. But I have to say it has been a really enjoyable experience so far. 2025 was all about setting up behind the scenes, getting the first customer exposure for the SV, and starting to talk about us and getting us out there. But 2026 now is really about building on those solid processes and foundations that we've put in place behind the scenes to make sure that we can ultimately deliver for fleet customers, especially, and those considering making that leap of faith to electric vans. So, it's quite a unique time for us because we're launching 2 businesses really. So FARIZON as the commercial vehicle brand that we're distributing, but the company that I'm actually employed by, which is Jameel Motors, as the imported distributor, which, for those that don't know, Jameel Motors is a Saudi Arabian originating business. It employs over 11,000 people in 34 different countries, distributing many other automotive brands outside of the UK. So not new to automotive, not new to startup, and a really good basis for us bringing FARIZON to market in the UK.
Welcome, Calum, and it's great to have you on. And like you say, exciting times and an exciting sector to be entering as well in terms of that electric van sector in the UK.
Yeah, it is an incredibly exciting time. Electric van is still, I say still niche. Last year, if you look at the market of around 318,000 new LCV registrations in the UK, about 9.5%, about 30,000 units were electric, and that was up 36% on the previous year. So really strong growth, of course, coming from a lower base, but that adoption is certainly picking up momentum. So for us, it's a really opportune time to enter the market because FARIZON is a from the ground up electric vehicle. It's not a diesel combustion engine vehicle or the SV is not a diesel combustion engine vehicle that has been converted to EV. This is a from the ground up designed EV. So that means that there's zero compromise, and to be entering the UK, which is I think philosophically has a really warm approach to EV. It's more about how do you practically make it work in your business as a fleet decision maker. And there are a number of challenges there, as I'm sure you and all of your listeners are aware. But they are challenges that we as an industry will overcome. But the starting point also has to be that the product has to be really good, and it has to do what it says it's going to do, to give confidence to those fleet decision makers that when they make the switch, they're making the right switch for the right reasons.
Excellent. And thinking about, Curtis has given a little bit of background, and you've touched on some of that in that introduction there. But for the listeners, have you got some background of FARIZON? Although it's and we talk about it being a new name in the UK, as Curtis said, and you've touched on there. But they are well established in China and other global markets. Do you want to just sort of, for the listeners, for the benefit of the listeners, talk us through some of the brand's history and its where it's operating and previously been operating in other markets?
Yeah, no, of course. So FARIZON was established in 2016 as Geely Commercial Vehicles brand for alternative fuels. Okay, so as you're probably aware, Geely are responsible for a number of household brands in the UK, such as Polestar, Volvo, Lotus, LEVC, so the London taxis, and of course recently you've seen Geely cars enter the UK as well. So there's an awful lot of motoring and I guess more importantly engineering heritage behind the FARIZON brand, despite the business or the brand only really being 10 years old. They are now regularly selling over 300,000 vans a year, of course, predominantly in their home market, but they are expanding into many markets. So, obviously the UK being one, and into other European markets. And I think it's over 30 countries outside of the home market that they've expanded out to in the last sort of 12 to 24 months. So, they're growing at a phenomenal rate. But I mean, look, this is Geely, so you've kind of got the army of R&D engineers and support and expertise, which make bring a new brand to market. Whilst it's always a challenge, particularly with a commercial vehicle, because I think there's probably an extra level of credibility that you have to provide as a van manufacturer as opposed to passenger car. But certainly they've got the engineering know-how and the resources to make a success of things. So, we've had a really strong reception, and I think helping understand our potential customers and dealer investors understand that alignment with Geely and that backing there. It really kind of speaks volumes when you're sat in front of an end user or a leasing company. They really get it. When you say, look, this is the family of the automotive family that this brand comes from.
And that's, thinking about how that fits with the UK market and its European rollout, that's kind of answered that there, haven't you, in terms of where it sits within that broader Geely brand, that, the presence in other global markets. With that, for the dealers that are listening this morning to it, one, you've kind of touched on there, like I say, how it fits in the UK and that European rollout. But again, you were down at AM Live in November last year, and that was kind of the first exposure really to the wider audience in the UK. What was the reception like when you were down there?
Yeah, we've had an excellent reception and a really strong level of interest from a number of the dealers and customers, not just from AM Live, but I think from all of the events that we've done. Last year we did Company Car in Action, Fleet Mobility Live, we did the Installer Show, trying to kind of get some brand exposure in different markets, different niches. But we've had a really, really strong reception. I think it's fair to say that pretty much everyone who drives the van or gets a look at it is really surprised by it, because it is a premium product. It's very well specified. And so we can talk about specification and things perhaps in a minute, but everyone that gets into it really loves it. And again, for me, taking the decision to come and join this business and get involved with this setup, really understanding that it's a fantastic product. It is. And the electric van market will grow. It has to grow. I mean, legislation, of course, with the ZEV mandate, which I know you guys talk about quite regularly on this podcast, will push that, and various different OEMs will respond in different ways to that. But we are a pure electric pure electric brand in the UK, and for us, that exposure to customers and importantly to dealers and giving them confidence and getting their feedback. We pass all of that feedback back on to our colleagues at Geely, who really want to support the UK market and make a success of it here. So getting that engagement is great. But as I say, electric van is still a little bit niche at less than 10%. And, I guess where we're talking to dealers, that dealers really like the product, but there's a plethora of OEMs that are landing in the UK at the moment from overseas. And of course, it's a complicated time for dealers because they're having to make decisions to I guess, reduce their risk or mitigate their risk from the traditional OEMs where they may have been sort of focused or primarily built around one brand or one business. And now there are lots of challenger brands coming in. So I guess it's a case of which horse do you back in this race that is electrification.
And staying with the SV, so as you say, it's all electric, and it's competing in the same market as, say, Transit, Master, and Sprinter in terms of size. How are you targeting it? Are you initially targeting the large corporate fleets? Do you see pick up from sole traders as well? What's the thinking about who you're initially pitching at?
I think strategically, because you can only prioritise your resources in so many spaces, and actually we've been really focused on fleet industry because fleet is a long lead time business. The decision making process is long and drawn out for the right reasons because fleet decision makers, they have to make these things work, and it isn't always an easy thing because they're thinking about things like not just can the driver or the user drive the vehicle, it's where do you charge it? Is there downtime associated with that? What infrastructure do I need? Typically the MSRPs on electric products are higher than the diesel with a residual value challenge as well. So what does that total cost of ownership impact look like? So there's a lot of work to do there. So we focused on fleet industry also because the majority of electric vans are sold and registered through the fleet industry. There's still some quite a bit of way into the catch up to go in the retail and SME space. So we've been very much focused on that. We've got a lot of longer term fleet trials out there with some of the largest national fleets in the country. So you might see some liveried vehicles on the road and in different parts of the countries, which we're really excited about. From a retail SME point of view, that is a focus for us this year to build that presence and that awareness with the general public. There are a lot of owner driver van users out there, but they may not be as au fait with electric vehicles. But actually, it's kind of this is an important part of our dealer strategy. Actually, we really want to partner with dealers who understand commercial vehicle but are experts at electrification. They know how to sell and demonstrate value and total cost of ownership and not just rely on selling a rental, because an electric vehicle rental in many cases can often be more, but when you look at that total TCO model across a period of 3 to 5 years, actually that end user can really, really benefit. So it's we have to support our dealer partners in helping them communicate that to end user customers, particularly in that SME space.
And because you're designing vehicles from scratch, with the SV, it strikes me, it could be quite a modular vehicle that you could add derivatives to. And I think in some markets there is a taxi version. Is that something you would consider, say, for the UK market at some stage?
Well, I mean, I don't want to preview anything we're doing, but there's all I'll say is watch this space. There's a lot of things that we are looking at and planning in the pipeline. So, as you say, it is quite a modular product, and it is from the ground up EV. So we haven't had to compromise on many things. We have one model at the moment, which is the SV, in various different lengths and heights, or from L1 to L1H1 up to L3H3. And also 3 different batteries, a 67 kilowatt, an 83 kilowatt, and a 106 for a longer range. We've also packed the product with lots of kits as well. So we have one model line. So every version comes with heated and ventilated seats and a heated steering wheel, which is kit that you don't get is standard on most vans. No. I think one of the kind of philosophies here is that what we recognise is that the van is the office for the person that's driving it, and they might spend 8-10 hours a day in that cabin, and we want to make it as comfortable a place as possible. Also, through focusing on things like I say, heated seats and ventilated seats. These are things that you tend to get in high-end cars, but actually it's more efficient for the vehicle because you're heating and cooling the driver, not the cabin. Yes. Which enables you to then eke out, marginal gains in terms of range and efficiency. We've also added things like 360-degree camera, which is great for, of course, parking and mitigating potential incidents and damages. Yep. Something that's unique on the vehicle is a payload monitoring system is standard. So that doesn't exist, to my knowledge, on any other products in the UK, and that helps fleets with maintaining and monitoring their compliance because they can see. Yes. With a degree of tolerance, the weight of the vehicle. We also load it with what we call vehicle to load, or V2L is standard, which is essentially 3.3 kilowatt plug sockets in the back of the van. So, to an SME customer or a user, you can operate tools from it. You could, even at trade shows, we operate a coffee bar off of it for a number of days, and that's tech that's in there you don't have to pay for.
And is there anything you can tell us about the smaller van, which is reportedly due here later this year?
So we are, without really revealing too much, we will be revealing a new product at the CV show at the end of April. So I can't tell you too much about it at the moment. It is slightly smaller than the SV, but what I will say, it's a very, very capable vehicle and very cleverly packaged as well. So we are quite excited about bringing that to market, kind of as an entry point below SV.
Yeah, and that's only next month, the CV show. So yes. That's a good sneak preview, isn't it, for potential customers and indeed dealers.
Absolutely. So, and as I say, we start with SV. So we bring a new model to market next month in the CV show, and we are developing more, or Geely are developing more products as well, and we're working with Geely to make sure we bring the right products to market. They're developing their product range, and what's really important for us is, they're working with us to understand what are the requirements of the UK market, say for other types of like commercial vehicle, and what can they do to help us tap into those markets. So I think the next 12 to 18 months, really watch this space with us.
And I think one thing that's been very clear is the speed from that research to implementation of product is pretty quick, isn't it? So I think clearly feedback from what you can bring to them will be very much needed, and they can act on it fairly quickly, Calum. And if we take you back, you touched on it a little bit earlier, take you back to the van market. We know that 2025, it was a challenging year for the van market, but we have seen that in the last sort of 3 months it start to recover with improvements, particularly in that large van sector and the battery electric vehicle sector for the vans as well. What do you see? You touched on it a little bit there in terms of that segmentation, what you bring into market, some of that specification that's on the SV and coming out of FARIZON. But a new entrant, what's your brand focused on in the electric market? What's the differentiator that you're coming into from FARIZON?
Yeah, I mean, like I say, we're a fresh face into the van market, and if you look at history, really since the turn of the millennium, you've had 2 or 3 brands that have dominated 60-70% of the market, and there's probably only been 1 or 2 that have actually come and stayed the distance. So you have to look at, so as you say, what is it that kind of makes us stand out? And as I say, today, we don't have that distraction of ICE, which is great. So we can take an approach where we will grow and organically, or certainly that's our intention, is to grow organically with the market. You see lots of things happening at quarter end, at year end, and things like that, and that's the nature of being a commercial business. But we do need to, we have the opportunity to kind of engage with customers, shape our product, shape our brand, shape our ways of doing things a little bit differently, because we don't have legacy. So I'll give you an example. So one of the most important things in the commercial vehicle world, of course, is uptime. How do you keep that van on the road? Because the cost of that vehicle being off the road can be massively detrimental to the end user. So it's important that we give them confidence and we support them credibly. So in coming to market, of course, without a dealer network from day one, what we did is we partnered with the AA. Not just for roadside assistance, so that the vans have 4 years roadside assistance is standard, but actually beyond that, the AA customer can book in within 72 hours for a service, maintenance, or repair job with the AA, and they will either attend or can go to one of their over 200 LCV EV approved workshops. So effectively, we have a dealer network from day one, and then behind the scenes, we have partnered with DHL for parts logistics, which means that a traditional OEM process, whereby for a VOI you order by a certain time, you can deliver next day. We can do that, and we do that. We hold a really good stock holding of parts in the UK to make sure that we've got that coverage. And Geely also, as they move into Europe, are committed to, in the I think this year, they are opening a parts logistics centre in Europe, which means that we don't have to wait for parts from China. Albeit we're holding a good stock ourselves to make sure we're ready to support customers. But actually, that significantly reduces that lead time as well. So they really understand uptime. As do we, and the team that we've built really understand it. And that's, again, because we don't have those legacy processes, we can come at things a little bit differently.
Yeah, as you say, I mean, that's that. As you say, when you're getting into that SME owner, that commercial vehicle market, it is all about downtime, efficiency, and things like that. They just can't afford for those vehicles to be off the road for any significant amount of time. So that must give confidence that, as you say, you haven't got those legacies of an existing network, but you are coming in with that full backup and support infrastructure that they'll need for that commercial vehicle market.
Yeah. And that's it. And when you, certainly over the last 10 months that I've been in the business now, I think it's 10 months coming up to, when you get in front of a leasing company or a retailer or fleet decision maker, and you take them through that, you get really good feedback, and they feel confident that we've really thought about things, and we've stress tested those processes as well to make sure that if we need a repair done, let's stress test it and make sure it gets done on time, because we are building a dealer network and expanding that, but having that ability to support a customer wherever they are in the country from day one, I think is quite different to what's gone before.
Yeah, and I think I expect it will be very well received in the market. But we'll be back after this short break with more from Calum and FARIZON.
You're listening to all the chatter that matters on this special weekday episode of Motor Trade Radio, powered by Motors and Cazoo.
Welcome back. We're talking to Calum James, General Manager of FARIZON UK. Now, Calum, for the benefit of listeners, let's look at the franchising opportunities presented by FARIZON. Can you tell us which groups have signed up with you so far, and also give an indication on what type of dealers you're looking to partner with in the UK?
So, I mean, firstly, we're really pleased with the dealers that we've so far partnered with, and I will name drop them if you don't mind. So,
Please do.
we've currently partnered with the Heathrow Van Centre, of course, in Heathrow, SMV Commercials in Street in Somerset, Brian Curry in Milton Keynes, Rigor, who are representing in Reading and Oxford. We've got our own flagship location in Park Royal on the North Circular, so it's the old Cazoo site for people that know it. Plus, this week we formally announced Pentagon, based out of Derby, and I can reveal our latest partnership, so that you're the first ones to hear this, is with Bridgend Ford in South Wales, and we're over the moon to have them join us in the last couple of weeks, but I can formally announce that today. So you might have gathered from if you're familiar with those businesses, we're really focused on businesses who understand the importance of uptime for customers. So these are all businesses with great experience of commercial vehicle, whether in van or truck, and they really, as can happen at times, and I think we've all seen it, can sometimes the van business can be the poor relative in a passenger car franchise because perhaps the labour rate isn't as strong or whatever. So we want to work with businesses who understand CV, understand the impact of uptime, but more fundamentally understand the challenges that fleets and end user customers have in terms of electrification. They can talk about the value, the TCO model, and not just push a rental. Because, like I said earlier on, the electric van market is still developing. So, we're very much positioning ourselves as a low cost investment, really to complement an already established successful business. Where there's an opportunity to share resources, because the model is changing. With electrification, you can't expect, looking ahead into the future, there isn't as much after sales opportunity with electric vehicles. So, you can't expect that same rate of absorption through a workshop as perhaps you might have done. So, we really have to. Certainly, our approach is to be a minimal investment, but really that's not to affect quality. We only want to really work with partners that get it.
And you've clearly got some great names on board already. And as you say, Pentagon joined this month, and Bridgend Ford. Thank you for the exclusive. We do like an exclusive on the podcast. Again, another well-known name in the business who understand the van market. So I'm just wondering, what are the typical startup costs for new partners, and what are your corporate identity expectations?
Yeah, so we, as I say, we've positioned ourselves as a complement to an existing business. If we were to turn up demanding a gym palace and the like, I'm sure we'd be shown the door. But our approach is very much to, as I say, complement an existing business where there's the opportunity to share resources. There's a minimum stock holding, so which is relatively modest, a modest investment in tooling. From a signage point of view, we do ask for obviously some signage. People need to know that the business exists, but again, we're not trying to be over onerous with that at all. Also, from a resources point of view, I said we very much focus on shared resources, because if you've got an existing business, you've probably got in your workshop multiple technicians qualified to level 3 that actually we could just cross train rather than insist on an additional technician. So very, very light touch, because, as I say, it's a developing market. So let's grow it organically rather than go too hard too soon.
And for the dealers that you've signed up already, what are the typical timelines from those initial conversations to them going live?
I mean, it really varies, to be honest. I mean, we've had some who we've engaged with 8-9 months ago. Some of them possibly started before I joined the business and are just joining. Others we've done in a space of maybe 2 to 3 months. It's about, depending on where that business is. We have engaged with some businesses who are already in the process of onboarding, multiple passenger car franchise from overseas. So it's about sort of fitting into that schedule, because good dealers, of course, want to do things properly, and they want to onboard properly, set their systems, set their processes up, really become familiar with the product. And we do that as part of our onboarding. We really focus on making sure all of the tools are available, whether that's product training, technical training, information, marketing resources. We come with with everything, trying to make it as easy as possible to onboard. But of course, we respect that there are many different spinning plates, and also the demands and budgets of existing OEMs or existing manufacturer relationships that dealers have to manage. And I think, for us, we're really pleased, as I say, with the dealers we've onboarded. But in some cases, there's probably been some awkward conversations for them, where perhaps they've been soulless or very much focused around a legacy brand for a very long time, and the fact that they want to, they give us their vote of confidence, and we'll go and have those conversations to say, look, we're going to join FARIZON, join Jameel Motors as a franchise partner. It's a huge compliment to us.
And on that, I mean, Curtis and yourself ran through obviously where you are today with your dealers and some of the territories, and the way you've gone to market with those, choosing those dealers as those preferred partners. But I mean, what is do you have an optimum UK network size that you're working towards, and if so, when are you expecting to get there?
Yeah, so I mean, we've done a lot of work on this behind the scenes, looking at, well, what's that right size network? What does the vehicle park development look like in different regions? So we've invested in some lovely software that helps us map that out. We look at where other franchise businesses are, and overlaying our volume plan, initially in that sort of first 5 years, and then into sort of the second half of a decade and beyond. So again, we have to think about feasibility in an electric van, and that's why we look at all at large areas of influence, that ensure viability whilst that vehicle park develops, whilst the EV industry develops as well. I think one of the challenges, of course, is that adoption. The ZEV mandate, wasn't achieved last year by some margin. So there is still some catch up to go with where the government are expecting things to be. So we have to grow it organically. So I couldn't say today, this is the exact ideal network size, but certainly we look at large areas of influence, but for sales representation, because of course also we have national coverage with the AA for SMR. So we give large areas of influence, but our partners with the AA also support from an after sales point of view as well. So, but we're constantly monitoring that, and we will move and develop that network at the pace of the market. But certainly, I say we're pleased with where we are with 8 dealers. We'll be into the double digits very, very shortly, but don't expect us to go and have 48 sales locations like Mercedes-Benz might have.
I think that's the thing, isn't it? You don't want to set yourself a target if it isn't strategically right in terms of the market growth and expectations.
And customer buying behaviours as well. So more and more customers are going online, and that's something that we have to look at, particularly in that SME space and how we go to market there. But especially in this space where electric van is predominantly fleets and it's fleet decision makers. There are many different ways of reaching those businesses, and take some of the groups that we're partnered with. Some of those are more regional, others are larger multi-brand fleet businesses that have customer relationships that are multi-brand. So in my opinion, we don't need to have, as I said earlier on, 30, 40 locations, but because actually, the businesses that we partner with have got really good relationships and are really good at what they do. So let's do that and grow it with them, and they can be part of that journey. We can be much more agile. We can be nimble. We can respond to their feedback as well. We've just had our first dealer council a couple of weeks ago, which was fantastic. Because like anything that's new, there's some really great things, but there's some challenges as well. But we want to partner with the dealers and go with them on that journey. So that dealer council is really, really important, that they can help us shape, okay, this is how we're going to approach marketing, for example. This is how we're going to approach a sales campaign. So, again, being a slightly smaller business allows us to react a little bit quicker.
And again, you mentioned earlier about your partners that you've got on board already, and the research that you're looking at from that, opportunities in the market. Are there any specific geographical areas that you're currently targeting to get on this initial launch phase? For anybody listening and we'll share contact details towards the end, but for anybody listening, what areas are you looking at in terms of geographically now? What are the open points?
So we've got really good coverage. I guess it's sort of we're extending out from London, so we've got good coverage down the M4 corridor, and then now into South Wales. Of course, we've got Pentagon up in the just joined us in the East Midlands. I guess we're looking to progress further north, and we are in a number of discussions moving up into the north of England and into Scotland and Northern Ireland as well. So we're very much sort of expanding out from the south. But we would like to engage with partners further north as well.
And finally, Calum, can you give us a flavour of where Farizon will be at by the end of the decade in terms of your vehicle lineup, market share, and potential sales? I know some of that you're keeping fairly close to your chest for understandable reasons, but I just wonder if you can give listeners a flavour of where you see yourselves by 2030.
Yeah, I think, of course, I don't want to reveal too much about our numerical objectives at this point, or I'll be held to them. But things are changing so rapidly in the marketplace. For us, we really want to be recognised by fleets and by end users and dealers, investors as well, is a real credible alternative to the traditional OEMs. I think we've already set ourselves apart from our competitors, either through the product and its capability, but also the way that we've approached things such as after sales and uptime. We were very much focused on after sales from the very start, and so we want to become that credible partner. We want to move at the pace that the market transitions to EV. We want to be that alternative that someone that's run a legacy brand for maybe 10, 20 years wants to look at. And, we want to run those trials with those customers. We want to build that credibility and also be seen as a business that helps fleet decision makers, transition or navigate their way through this transition to electrification. There's a lot more product coming down the line. As I say, it's going to be a busy sort of 12 to 18 months. And with the pace of research and development from our factory partners at Geely, we want to become a major player in the LCV market. So, we spent our setup year in 2025, particularly in sort of the second half, attending lots of shows, going out and telling everyone, to coin a phrase, how shiny our ashtray is. But now we've got the multiple fleet trials underway that are building credibility. As I say, there's some large nationals who have liveried some of our vans doing extended trials at the moment. Very much it's about building credibility, laying the foundations for us through 2026 and beyond. So again, I think I'll probably for the 10th time I'll say watch this space.
Yeah, and it's just listening to all of that conversation, Calum, it's exciting times. I think as you say, you're coming fresh into the market. You've got no legacy in terms of the brand Farizon. You're getting the weight of the Z mandate behind you. You haven't got the sweat of the fines and achieving those thresholds, but you are getting this government sort of backing as this transition to EV. So as you say there, doing the research, doing the strategic review of the market, getting the right partners on, it does sound like a really exciting time. And that's notwithstanding what you shared with us at the start of today was, the specification that around that battery technology and the weight that you've got with Jameel and obviously Geely behind you is absolutely fascinating stuff. So with that in mind, for anybody listening to the podcast and whenever they are listening to this chat with you, Calum, how can they get in touch with you if they're interested in having a conversation, becoming a franchise partner with you? How can they get in touch with you?
Yeah, I mean, I guess two main ways. You can always direct mail me on LinkedIn. My name's Calum James, and that's Calum with one L. My mother liked James Herriot, and what was the program? All Creatures Great and Small is named after Calum, the Scottish vet, in that. So it's Calum with one L, surname James, or you can email me at jamesc@jameelmotors.co.uk. So I'd love to hear from people that want to find out a little bit more. Please don't sign me up to any pizza lists or anything like that. But we'd love to hear from businesses looking to look at something a little bit different. To really consider. There are other horses to back, and we'd love to come and talk to you and perhaps even loan you a demo to experience it for yourself and again build a bit of confidence.
And failing that, you'll be at events, and I think the next one is probably the CV show, I think, isn't it?
It is the CV show. Yeah, that's the next one. So we've got a really big stand there, I'm told. We will also be doing other things throughout the year. I don't have our events chap, Jamie, in front of me, but he'll tell me off. We'll probably say the wrong thing. But we'll be doing things like Company Car in Action again, Fleet and Mobility Live, and there's a number of others as well. So yeah, we'll be very, very visible.
Well, that's all for now. Our thanks to Calum for joining us on the pod. I mean, it really has been a fascinating chat with some great insights. So good luck to you and the team with the rollout of FARIZON. And as you say, watch this space.
Thank you very much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
It's been an absolute delight. So many thanks, Calum, and many thanks to you for listening to this Motor Trade Radio OEM special. Until next time, it's goodbye from me.
And it's goodbye from him.
Thank you for listening to this special weekday Motor Trade Radio podcast, powered by Motors and Cazoo. Philip and Curtis will be back with the week's big motor retailing headlines on Saturday.